Good day, fellow chairmen. How are you guys doing?
Good.
Good day to you.
I'm good.
Mason has got a beautiful cup of coffee that I am currently a little jealous of. I've already had my coffee for the morning. I'll have another one later, but watching someone else drink a cup of coffee it's hard for me to do. I just want to join in. Are you going dark roast today, Mason, or are you more of a light roast man?
I'm exclusively a light roast person, and coincidentally, fun fact is that light roast has more caffeine. A lot of people don't know that.
Yep.
But this is
and it tastes better.
Yes, this is from Coffee Collective in Denmark. Shout out to Coffee Collective.
Wow.
Got a nice Colombian.
Importing your coffee.
Today. Oh yeah.
Nicely done. I guess most people do, but that's good. But it's not the topic for today. But I mean, a tangent on coffee is a tangent well used, I like to say. And so we are currently in the metaphorical Mazda Miata. Brian's hair is flowing nicely today.
Oh yeah, he's got kind of a faux pompadour kind of. I like it.
Something.
I'm excited to see what it's going to be like after an hour of driving down a windy road. We'll see if you've got a bit of a perm type action or that kind of vibe going. But today we are going to be talking about something I'm going to be honest, I'm excited to hear your guys' take on. And that is mostly because I already know what I'm going to say. But that is basically companies that consistently hit home runs. Basically, how I think about it, if a company came out with a piece of gear, this company that is, always hitting home runs, like, I don't even need to try this thing to know it's going to be good. I know it's good because of their history, because of their back catalog of gear, pedals, services that they put out. I know that they focus on quality pieces of gear rather than, let's say, quantity pieces of gear and just kicking things out the door as quickly as they possibly can. So we're going to focus on quality today.
So we're looking for the Mark McGuires of the pedal industry, or the, I don't know, Sammy Sosa, Barry Bonds. I know
Wayne
they were all
Gretzky's.
tainted. They were tainted by steroids, but they still hit a crap load of home runs.
Exactly. Yeah, I guess mine hockey reference doesn't really fit in with the home run thing. But
he's a Canadian, so we forgive you.
Yeah.
Hey, you say a hockey reference. I get you.
Thank you. So I'm not totally alone here. Yeah.
No, I'm from Detroit originally, so hockey is huge over there.
Beautiful.
Hockey might not be good now for Detroit, but it's hockey.
It's still huge. Yeah. It's kind of the same in Vancouver. We have the Canucks, and next year is always our year. Next year will be different for the last 15 or so years. Next year's the year. And so today we're talking home runs, and I have a few companies I wrote down. I wrote down a few companies in the kind of pedal category, a couple for amps, a couple for guitars, and I'm kind of excited to chat about that. But if we just do a list of, here's 20 companies that are home runs, it's not going to be a very exciting episode. So what I wanted to talk about at the top is kind of my criteria, and I would invite you guys to expand, challenge, or, agree with or disagree with my list here. But what, in my mind, makes a great piece of gear, a company that hits some home runs, is it's a quality piece of gear. And my definition of quality is maybe not what you would normally think. It might be a little bit different, but what I'm going to say quality from my definition is fit for purpose. So a quality piece of gear doesn't necessarily mean it weighs 2 pounds more than the competition, because if something's heavy, it always feels like it's more quality. But it's basically, for this piece of gear, for the price I paid, it is fit for the purpose I need. So it might not even be the world's best built piece of gear, but for let's say a $99 pedal, it's like, I'm actually getting more than I expected. They did a better job than my expectations led me to believe. It's well thought out for the user. So it's not, again, just a piece of gear that's rushed out the door just to make a quick buck. It's well thought out. They took their time. The hardware matches or exceeds the company claims. The audio quality matches or exceeds the company claims, meets a need that is not already widely met in the market. So it's not just a direct copy. Again, it would lead you to believe it's not well thought out because they didn't really put any extra thought into it. has a unique feature or aspect or take on the features that other products don't have, and easy to use relative to the competition. So an easy to use relative to the competition, last night, I just told you guys before we started recording, I was using the Quad Cortex. I've used it a little bit before last night, but I don't have extensive experience. Last night, I just wanted to mess around with capturing my AC30. And the whole time through the process, I didn't look at the manual. I just powered it up. I hit the buttons, the top 3 dots in the right-hand corner, and I just scrolled to capture an amp. Okay, so I hit that, and then it went through every step I needed to know, how to patch it in right on the screen of the Quad Cortex until you get to the capture the amp. I was like, man, that was unbelievably easy to use. Whereas other multi-effects units I've used in the past, I've had to go to the manual. I've had to look up, you know what I mean? Like, it was very easy. So I was pleasantly surprised about that as an example. So those are kind of my criteria. Anything off the top of your guys' heads that I'm missing, and any thoughts you want to kind of add in before we get into companies that hit a home run?
I think you did a really great job, Grant, of spelling out that criteria. I'm ready.
Yeah, same.
Awesome. Okay. So I have a list of a few companies like I was mentioning. I'm sure you guys have a couple that come to mind as well. But without giving too much away, without giving away the headline, if you guys had to pick one company that embodies what we're talking about today, that embodies this company, just as hard as they may try, they just can't make a bad piece of gear. Can you give away one for us before we get into it? And maybe your experience with that company and why you think that that company embodies what we're talking about today.
I can start, Brian, if you're still thinking.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead. I'm just trying to remember the name of the owner, but go ahead. You go first.
So a company that embodies the spirit of the home run.
Yes, the home run spirit. The Sosa of companies.
Yeah, the Sosa. Yeah, pre-steroid Sosa.
There we go.
I would say Exotic Effects is one that's there. And I've mentioned them before as, I think, a company that I think is really admirable in that they don't have a super aggressive release calendar. They don't focus on breadth. They really focus on having a deep quality product line. There's very few discontinued pedals in their line. And they're very deliberate in what it is they come out with. They don't come out with a pedal every year necessarily. And when they come out with stuff, it's got staying power and it ends up on people's boards. And a lot of their effects are staples on rigs still to this day. You know, even though they, you know, the AC, RC, BB, all those came out 20 years ago almost.
Yeah.
So,
is it that long already?
Well, I'd say I kind of remember them coming out like when I was in college, so probably around early 2000s. So should be coming up.
The thing I like about Exotic, it's on my list as well actually, is they're very simple as far as the external controls, like the RC boosters, 4 knobs, 2 jacks, and a power thing with an LED. But even on the RC as an example, the one I'd be most familiar with from them, the EQ section is so powerful. It's really well tuned. And then you've got a bit of extra gain on tap if you need it and a volume, and you compare it to other, similar style pedals. I just feel like with the RC booster, it's hard to get a bad sound out of it. They've just done a really good job taking the basics and doing each component of it really well.
Yeah. Yeah. They do a great job. And for people that don't know, the main designer, his name is Kiyoshi. He was at Full Tone for a long time before, the Exotic organized as an organization, and he became the designer for them. And it is said, although not proven, that he was actually the guy that designed the OCD, which is Full Tone's most popular pedal that they've ever made. That and probably the full drive. But Kiyoshi was one of the guys that had worked there for a long time, sort of when Full Tone was in its embryonic stages up until it was kind of the king of the boutique world before it started to get some competition by companies like Exotic. So shout out to Exotic, shout out to Kiyoshi. Really smart designer, knows what people want. I think he's got his finger on the pulse for sure.
Yeah. So funny story about Exotic actually. So Kiyoshi, is that how you said it? So is he like the designer?
He's the designer, and I think he's got some ownership stake as well.
So we had a gentleman in last week. He was walking around with his wife, and we're like, "Let us know if you have any questions." And he says, "Oh, thanks. I'm just visiting. I'm the CEO of Exotic."
I think his name is Toshio. I think is his name.
Yeah. Brian was gonna give me the card because I couldn't remember his name, but he came in, and we were showing him. He's like, love the store, and he was just afraid because I was just in the area, just in Dallas, and wanted to visit guitar stores, and we were talking about pedals, and he got the card. Thank you. Yeah, Toshi. Yeah, that we were talking about him, and so he left us his. If it's gonna focus.
Yeah, there we go.
I don't know if it's gonna focus.
Yeah. That is Exotic.
Super nice guy, and we talked about his pedals and stuff.
Just don't put that by your nightstand. Your wife may get the wrong idea.
Yeah, but yeah, I thought that was a cool story.
Call Toshio for a good time.
I've had the RC booster on every board I think I've ever had. Like I've had it for. Maybe not my first board, but yeah, Exotic has always consistently been on my board. The company I was gonna say, and maybe it's just more popular of the boards that I've been getting going lately, but it's a lot of King Tone, the pedal, Jesse Davey.
Nice.
They're great. The Duelist, and I've gotten there. I think it's called the 19. I have it.
68.
Yeah, 1968,
the Univibe.
This 1968, the Univibe, fantastic. He's going through some revisions right now, but like the Duelist comes on like every other board. I think just like
it's pretty popular right now.
It's very
almost
popular.
The new King of Tone, but the King of Tone is still the King of Tone.
And the fact that the new version has the dip switches on the outside to do the different types of switching, which is very convenient. That's a quality thing right there, that when you put the dip switches like that, so you don't have to flip open the pedal and do the dip switches, it just gets cumbersome. Plus the split loops. The split loops is the big thing. Like I will say, it's real. So for me, it would be King Tone is just off the bat if we're answering.
The 1968, correct me if I'm wrong, we did a setup with this a while back. Within the last year, and I think it was the 1968 where you could take a TRS to dual mono cable off the output, and you could also connect a foot switch to it. I think that's what it was, but they have some like cool hidden features in there as well that from just looking at it from the outset, you wouldn't necessarily know, but they've kind of thought through a couple of those extra things as well, which I really appreciate.
Well, he's also a great player. I don't know if you've ever heard him play, but like he's got that Stevie Ray, Philip Sayce kind of like when he does most of his own demos because he sounds like kind of like the sound of the player that would be interested in his brand. You know, he's just like he's got some good tone.
Yeah, he's a very nice guy, but yeah, so they would definitely be one of my first. It's just been like we don't carry King Tone like as a company because he does a lot of direct stuff, but like it's like I said, almost every other board or every other shelf has a King Tone of some sort. Mm-hmm. And he's doing a lot of revision stuff with his stuff. And the cool thing I will say is like his enclosures are really well thought out. It's not like a normal like Hammond enclosure or like those like the what's the enclosure that you guys used for the interfacers, the underfacers.
That's a Hammond.
So
it's like a 90 BB. Yep.
So that's like a double barrel or all these other pedals. A very common thing, and I think like the King of Tone, I think is the same thing. It's like a Hammond style-esque.
Yeah.
So like I remember pulling it apart and I was like, whoa, this is not a normal enclosure. Like even the design of the enclosure, how it's milled out is like, it's just really beautiful. I'm a sucker for details. So that's what I'd go with.
Mm-hmm.
Very cool. Yeah, I do like the King Tone stuff. I think the first one I tried We did Ariel Posen's rig, and he sent over a Duelist on his board, and very minimal pedal choice for him. Like, it was a really small board, so the King Tone had to cover a lot. And that was my first time playing it, so I still remember plugging it in. I'm like, oh, this is a nice pedal. And then you get another pedal in from King Tone. 1968 was the next one, I think, and it was the same thing, like just quality, well thought out, great sounds on board, and really easy to use. And so I think, that's a great point. One of the ones I want to bring up, I don't know if you guys have too much experience. I don't have as much experience with this company, but I've never had a bad one, I'll say. And seeing them launch products recently, it feels like they're just getting more and more into the attention to detail space, which would be Beetronics, your favorite insect-themed brand. They do some really cool stuff, and they kind of have this way of doing, I think they do, it might be like a custom folded enclosure, but then they do these really intricate face plates that go on top of the pedal, and the packaging to the look, the feel, the sounds of their gear as well. They've done a lot as far as attention to detail, and not really. Are you looking them up, Brian?
Are they the company that has like that fart pedal? Is that them?
No, I don't believe that is Beetronics.
No, you'll know. You'll know
the fart pedal did not make my list. Although it maybe.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
Maybe their V2 burp pedal will be, just as good as V1, but so far I haven't seen enough from Fart Pedal to put them on my list.
I have actually had a couple of these come through, and the reason I remember is because of their enclosure, how it's different and it's slanted, which is funny because if you look at it, you would think the flat side, the bottom side, is the bottom, but it's actually the top, and the angled side is actually the bottom. I don't know. Looking at it, maybe these photos are just really crazy, but I do remember these coming through. And I agree, those overlays are that's like,
they kind of have a lot of their specialties kind of more in like fuzzes, octaves. Now they have some, I think they have a chorus and some other stuff that in some kind of filtery type stuff. But I remember many years ago, they were kind of in our area of a NAMM show, and they were all like dressed up in like bee costumes, and
oh no way,
they would say be yourself, with multiple E's on the B.
Yeah,
and I think that I think they're based in LA now, but I think that the company or the individuals around the company are all from Brazil.
Oh, gotcha.
And really nice. It was a mix of men and women. They were really they were super nice people.
Were they beautiful?
Yes, they were beautiful. Yes.
Sorry, I was waiting for Brian to take the dad joke, but you didn't step up, Brian, so I had to come up with something on the fly.
I was gonna say their pedals are sweet like honey because of bees, but I just
guys, I want to continue this conversation. As you know, I do. But first, I want to tell you about two of our incredible sponsors. The first one is none other than the Guitar Sanctuary, which is currently on camera if you're watching on YouTube. Not my space, not Mason's, but B. Ryan's space over there at the Guitar Sanctuary is where Brian's at right now. And most of the gear that we're going to chat about today, and most of the gear we chat about in most episodes, can actually be found at the Guitar Sanctuary in McKinney, Texas. The place that is top of my list for getting some good barbecue. I don't know if that's a great choice or not, but Texas barbecue, the Guitar Sanctuary, Brian Omilion. Why wouldn't you want to go there? After you get some of that gear at the Guitar Sanctuary, Brian can set it up for you and get you going with the rig of your dreams. So check out the guitarsanctuary.com for all your gearing needs, if I can say that. Is that fair, Brian?
That's fair. Yeah, that's fair.
Thank you. I was hoping it would be. I also want to tell you about Mono, monocreators.com. They are running a discount code for Chairmen listeners. Use the code Chairmen to get 10% off your quality backpacks, whether you're a photographer, a guitar player, you need an accessory bag. Whether you want to get a pedal board from Mono, I was talking to someone just yesterday. I was on a call doing a pedal board consult, and they said, I need a lightweight angled pedal board, and it has to have a soft bag. I don't want a flight one of those big flight cases. I was like, Mono is the company for you. There's lots of space underneath their pedal boards for power supplies, junction boxes, pedals that are always on. And then lastly, with Mono, there's also the soft bags for your guitars, double gig bags, singles, all that. Talking baseball metaphors, that's a company that hits home runs. They are the pre-steroid Sosa of the gig bag game. And so check out Mono Creators for 10% off. Use the code Chairmen at monocreators.com, and you are going to be glad you did. So, guys, there's one other point I just realized, getting back into the podcast topic, I forgot to bring up, and I'm going to challenge you guys with an off-the-cuff question. I'm going to try and give you a lead up, though. Just because, for me, as an example, there are companies that I think hit home runs, but I don't like their pedals. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to explain this. I am not a fan of, as an example, a Bit Crusher. I just can't get behind it. Mostly, I think, because I don't have the creativity to know how to use it well. Yeah. So one company that comes up to mind, I do not like Bit Crushers, but Maris does a really cool auto bit. So they do some really cool pedals. And I know if Maris comes out with a product, it's going to tick a lot of these boxes of it's well thought out. It's not going to break down on me at an inconvenient time. It has a good feature list. And so for me, Maris, they do, the Mercury 7, which is a great reverb. They do a whole bunch of products, Polymoon. What was that? What's the orange one that Maris does? Do you guys remember? It's kind of like a glitchy, I'm blanking on it right now, but also a great pedal. But they do... Enzo, thank you, Brian. They do a line of pedals that some of them I've experienced with and really love, like the Mercury 7, and then some other stuff that I know are great for the right person, but just not for me, like the Auto Bit. Are there any pedals or sections of a company's line that you know are great, but just not quite for you or what you look for in a pedal? Anything you guys can kind of give me on that front, that side of things, to put it in a bit more context and just to delay a little bit longer, quite frankly, something that you might recommend for a customer's pedal board. In this instance, the customer's like, I really need a great auto bit, but you as the pedal board builder can't really, recommend it from personal experience because it's just not in your wheelhouse of preferred effects.
So this is based off of just the auto bit?
As that's my personal example.
Okay.
If someone was looking for a Bit Crush, I'd be like, oh, actually, Maris does one, MIDI controlled. Yeah. It gives you a bunch of extra features, but I personally am not going to put it on my board. But I think for what you need, this is going to tick the boxes.
Yeah. I mean, I would say the same thing. Maris kind of ends up being that one. Sometimes Eventide, like the H9 or H90, I think they do some kind of... I don't know if they do a Bit Crusher algorithm or not, but Maris is typically the one I recommend. The one of the pedal lines that I don't get along with but still recommend is some of the Chase Bliss stuff.
I was going to say that as well. Thank you.
Some of it is just very, like, I have the new moods coming in constantly. I have a mood about the moods kind of thing. And especially because it's stereo, a lot of people are switching to them. Stu G, he had texted me. He's like, I just got this. I'm trying to get it on my board. And talking someone through how to like just set up the MIDI channel, like how to program the MIDI channel on them sometimes can be tedious, but they're very well thought out pedals. They got a lot of stuff in them, and it's one of those things, like, they have so much stuff in them. I would love a screen, so like I typically stay away, but it's still something like, hey, if you're looking for this, this type of pedal, Chase Bliss makes a great pedal, and I give them all their options and the compact size. So yeah, it's definitely Chase Bliss is going to be that one. I'm like, I love the company, I love their stuff, but it's not something I would put on my board. I've had it on my board and it hasn't stayed for long.
They are a pedal you gotta dive into the manual for, because
very much so.
They've done such a great job of fitting so much into that form factor. but that comes at the cost of complexity. But at the same time, I don't know if you guys have a similar feeling about this, but I love, same with you, Brian, I love Chase Bliss. I love the look, feel, kind of the direction the company is headed. But when they come out with a new pedal that's quite complex and I can't gel with it because it's just, I feel like I'm not quite creative enough to really get that into that glitchy, I just don't know how to use some of their pedals. Some of the more crazy, left of center type pedals.
Yeah.
I look at Chase Bliss's line like, the problem is with me. Chase Bliss isn't the problem. I am the problem. And I just feel like I always point to myself, but they've done such a great job on creating a differentiated product line in a crowded market that I really love what they do, even though they wouldn't really end up on my board, to be honest.
Yeah.
I think the product from them that would end up on my board, or the most likely to end up on my board, is their, is it the 1978, the Reverb? The big giant Reverb? Like that is probably the one that would end up, or the Tonal Recall, something in that category.
Yeah, like their big one, the preamp and their big reverb, like those are great. The sliders, like all that's super cool. They're a little more easier to navigate, whereas you get like the my coworker has the Therme, loves it, sounds great. It sounds great. He uses it for delay. What gets me is some of these, it's like you have delay, or you have a modulation, or you have a fuzz, and I'm like, whoa, that's three different types of effects. Like I just need one of them. Yeah. So for me, if it's a lot of menu diving, I'm like, I don't have time. I personally, like, it's like people always like, wow, you're a rig builder, but you use a quad Cortex, like a multi-effects, a small unit, as small as possible, but you're building these big rigs. I'm like, I just don't have the time to sit down and program all 100 MIDI CC messages of the Chase Bliss to my controller so I can access everything, because it does so much stuff. That's what makes it amazing. But yeah, I completely agree.
What about you, Mason? Any companies you love to hate? That's a horrible way of saying it. I just wanted to say that.
We love to love them.
I would put Chase Bliss in that category too. Like I think it's sort of an overload of features, and I always feel like, even though I think the mechanical design of the automaton or the reverb are great engineering feats in our category. Like obviously the automated faders has been around for a long time, and just not in pedals. But I think it's all the stuff is really impressive. I just think like functionally there's a point where most guitar players sort of just gloss over and they're like, this is really cool, but I'm only going to explore 10% of what is possible with this,
especially at the price point as well.
Yeah, so but I think that Chase Bliss has done an incredible job at creating an identity that's really where there's like a kinship that I think a lot of musicians have with the brand, and they can see themselves in the owner and the values and the sort of the tonal wackiness and some of the stuff that they offer. And so I think in that respect, I think that it's an admirable company, and that that doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with it. It's just personally my preference. I would say the more controversial pick for me is Strymon. Oh, yeah. Everybody loves Strymon for the most part, and I recommend them to a lot of people. If they were to ask me, I don't have anything against the quality of the products, the design, the sound. There's just other stuff that I prefer for those sounds. And I know that I'm definitely in the minority on that, because I think that they're well-built products. I think it's a well-run company. I think that, they could also easily be in the list of companies that hit home runs with everything that they release. Pretty much everything that they come out with is going to have a groundswell of people that are talking about it, and they have very few discontinued pedals in their line. And you see Strymon pedals on, the majority of pedal boards that both you, Grant, and Brian are putting out every month have at least a Strymon pedal on every board. So I think that they're great products, unquestionably. I just when I see them, in most cases, I feel like I prefer different sounds that are maybe like not as sexy of pedals, but I think sound to me more authentic for the thing that they're trying to capture. But that's just me, and I know that I'm unique in that.
One thing I've learned over my, I wouldn't say many, but growing years on this earth, though, Mason, is that sex sells. And Strymon is the sex of the pedal board industry. That's how I like to think about them. But I would say, in all seriousness, I would say that Strymon is a safe bet. I don't think these days Strymon is going to absolutely blow you away with the uniqueness and the fresh take. But you also know at the same time, you're not going to get a horrible sounding pedal, and they're going to make a great product. So I think Strymon is like right down the middle. I know I'm going to get something I'll enjoy, but I don't know if it's going to absolutely blow me away with inspiration. Like a Dimension C would, like a Dimension C is super basic. Strymon's not going to come out with a Dimension C copy, but they will come out with a chorus, and their chorus is like, yeah, it's a good sounding chorus, but I want the Dimension C. I get inspired by it. And so I think I absolutely recommend Strymon in a lot of categories for people when they describe what they want. But that's it's kind of like, it's a safe bet. It's a single or a double for most guys, but it's not a grand slam. If we're going to stay, I'm not a sports guy. I have to say, I'm like the furthest thing from sports that you will find. So me using sports analogies, I just want, if I can just get some recognition and some praise for that at any point during the podcast, I would really appreciate that.
The single, the double counts as a touchdown, right?
Yeah, that's coffee. We're talking about single. Got it. Just a double there would be great. So I think we're on track here with the sports analogies. So I agree with Strymon. I'm going to rattle off a few pedal companies. I have one for power and a couple other we can move on to in a sec, but pedal companies, again, loving to keep things spicy here. I would love for you guys to tell me I'm wrong on one of these companies if you disagree. That's my goal here. Rattling these off, and I'm going to save one just for you, Brian, at the end of this list.
Fun.
Here we go. So we said Strymon is kind of, somewhere in the middle, maybe not absolute grand slam, but they do a great job. Beatronics, I mentioned. Exotic, Mason mentioned. RJM is, unsurprisingly, is on my list of when they put out a product. I'm usually quite happy on the MIDI switcher side of things. Layla. Do you guys say Layla? This is one I'm confused about. I'm self-conscious about my pronunciation.
It's like saying Worcestershire sauce or whatever. It's like pronouncing it correct.
Worcestershire.
Winchester. I say Laylee, but I'm sure I have people. They're like Layla.
That's I say like Laylee, but I feel like I'm wrong. But I like how it sounds. So okay.
We'll have to bring Burkhard on.
I think we need to. Yeah. So Layla, Eventide. Greer was also on my list. Kingsley is a Canadian company, so they're great.
The Page Boost, yeah.
I also put Old Diamond. I didn't put New Diamond just because I haven't tried them yet. So I assume they're going to be great, but I haven't personally tried them. Old Diamond I absolutely love, and Benson. Benson Pre, the Benson Fuzz, the Boost. I'm a big fan of the pedal line that they put out. Any of those you guys would just right away shoot me down on, like, Grant, you're a total and complete idiot.
She said Greer, Benson, and what was the other one?
Kingsley. Eventide's on there. Exotic, Beatronics.
I would say in some cases there's not enough time to know. Yep. Like with Benson, the pedal lines are a few years old at this point. I would say in terms of the number of them that you see on boards, is this going to be, a fad, or is this going to be, I feel like putting Exotic or Eventide in the same category as Benson and Beatronics and Greer, I think there's a pretty wide gap between longevity and sort of staying power. Although I would say that the Greer light speed of all of his pedals seemed to have really found a spot on a lot of boards and continues to be kind of a really solid, recurring, kind of transparent light overdrive.
Yeah.
And so I think in that pedal, but if you said to me, name 5 other pedals in his line, I couldn't name them. And so I think that, but if you said to most pedal guys, like name me, a couple of exotic pedals, I think that they could come up with quite a few more.
Yeah.
I think same with Beatronics. I think same with Benson. There's just not enough time to sort of know if it's got that sort of staying power. Like certainly, I think it's like hot in the same way that like Chase Bliss is hot. Like people want I think Benson amps have a cool identity. I think he also has done a good job of kind of creating a brand identity around, this mercurial amp builder from Portland, Oregon. And, he's kind of like reeled down, or he's kind of just like him completely himself. And it seems like a cool guy and builds these beautiful amps and has these cool pedals that you can get alongside the amplifiers. I guess I think that I have no objections to the pedals themselves. I'm kind of like comparing them to what I think are like the gold standards, like the exotics. I think Eventide could definitely fall into that category. Like H9s were a staple forever, and I'm sure that the H90 is going to be just as solid of a choice.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's where I fall on. I'm like, great pedals, no objection to them. I just think that they've got a log a decade, of being on top before we can really like say, yeah.
Well, Mason, I appreciate the pushback. That's what I'm looking for. That's what you gave us.
Well, yeah. I mean, I would agree. I agree with what Mason is saying. I think there's a category of like exotic and Eventide that's like on the it's like stairs where like Eventide and exotic, they have been doing it for so long, so they might be closer to the top of knowledge and products and knowability and people like using them. But then you do have companies like Benson and what was the other Greer and them, like they have been doing it for a while, not as long, but you are seeing them going on boards, and they are great. I don't see as many Benson pedals. It's funny, I see more people looking for the Benson bass. Maybe it's a different company. Do they make like a bass DI, or is that a different Benson company? There's like 2 companies that are like something Benson. Okay, maybe it's a different company. That I always get them Benson. This is Benson what? Benson amps?
Like same as Benson amps, yeah.
Okay, maybe I'm thinking of a different company. But I mean, you'll see a lot of the Benson, the preamp and those kind of things on boards and stuff.
Yep.
I think what it comes down to is a lot of these companies make a lot of the same pedals, so everyone's always, switching stuff out, a preamp for a different preamp. But I mean, there are times that Eventide has come out with stuff like the Rose pedal and stuff like that, where they're not as big of like an amazing thing as like the H90 and everyone's freaking out and stuff about it. But I think quality, like those companies, they all do come out with great stuff. Another one was maybe you guys will push back, Origin Effects.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, anytime that they've come out with stuff, I mean the Cali 76, I mean they had that huge big box Cali, and then now they have the compact, and they have their full size revival drive. So like all these different pedals that have come out, their bass pedals that they debuted at the Super Bowl for the bands. Both
No
bass
way.
players. Yeah, both bass players for the Super Bowl last year were using them, and you could see them laying up there. And I was like, I don't know if they're actually playing because the Super Bowl has been rumored that it's all pre-recorded. But the fact that those are up there and the bass player came out and was like, no, we were really running through them like direct in, like because their bass pedal has an XLR out. I think their stuff, and I've done a lot of their stuff lately, it's been really great. The quality of it, the enclosure is just so. You pick up a Cali 76 and you're just like,
see, there's the weight is quality thing. I
can use this as a compressor pedal, and I can also hold an entire semi truck from rolling down a hill because this sucker is just so strong.
You should need a license to carry that thing.
Really, honestly, you got a permit. But yeah, no, it's. I would say Origin is definitely another one of those I would add to the list. But everything that you said, I agree. I haven't had a lot of with the Beatronics.
Yeah. I would say the Cali 76 for sure is like, kind of like how the Lightspeed is for Greer. Like it's it's like it's the pedal that that's kind of like launched that brand identity. I think one thing that they do really well is they have a very identifiable look. And I think that they have, like, when you see an Origin pedal, you know what it is. And I wouldn't say though that most of their other stuff has the same sort of staying power as the Cali 76. Like, I know that they've done some cool like EQ stuff, like I think like a Pultec style thing where they they have like that in a pedal, and they've kind of like adapted some studio gear, and I think all that's cool.
Halcyon as well, the tube screamer.
Yeah, it's kind of a tube screamer thing. Yeah, and so they have all sorts of cool stuff. I would say though that, like, again, I think their main product or their main identity is around the compressor. Mm-hmm. And I think that it's a great compressor. I have no objections to it whatsoever. I would just say comparing that to, again, like an Exotic. I think the other company that we need to throw in here that is not been mentioned yet is Fulltone. Now, I know that they're on a temporary hiatus. I know that the word on the street is that they're gone for good. I just don't believe that. I want to get into talking about Fulltone more because I think that this is an important brand in this category. I want to stop for a moment, though, to speak about a couple sponsors. The first of which is Sweetwater and their amazing new program, the Sweetwater Gear Exchange. Now, I have been an avid user of the Sweetwater Gear Exchange to sell off a lot of older gear that I haven't been using in some time, which I'm sure sounds familiar to many of you listening. And I really love it because if there's something, let's say, new that I'm looking for, like let's say I want a new custom shop Strat, or I want a new Les Paul, or fill in the blank, whatever piece of gear that's definitely a big purchase that I'm interested in, you can almost use the Sweetwater Gear Exchange as